something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Oh, left the photo up again. How you going, folks? Hope you're having yourself a bloody good day. Has it been warm in your part of the world? Been an absolute stinker in my part of the world. I trust you were able to stay relatively cool if that's what you needed to do, or relatively warm if that's the other thing you needed to do. I've had a lot of phone calls today from people who have been saying, oh, Carl, what's silver doing? What are we going to do? Is it going up? Is it going down? What's it going to do? Look, I did say this week was going to be a rather interesting week, and last week too, for that matter, with how the market's going to play. In fact, all of February is going to be really interesting. Interesting from the perspective of things go up, things go down, and the reasons why those prices are being influenced. So at the moment, just having a bit of a look at the ticker, it's sitting at 117, just dropped to $117.93 an ounce. That is the spot price for silver here in Australia. But, and this is the topic of the conversation today, I had 3 people ring me and tell me that, oh, Carl, you've got to buy in the dip. And I agree. If you're going to play gold and silver, folks, go and buy in the dip. But this is a dip. We assume it to be a dip. We want it to very much be a dip. However, you can't buy anything for that sort of price, $117, $118, $120 an ounce. You simply cannot buy it in Australia. The prices, regardless of where you buy your bullion from, have, some would call it a markup. It's not a markup. It's protection that's built into the market. And the fact that if a bullion seller was to sell you an ounce of silver today at, it's saying, say, $118. So they sell you a coin for $122, making $4 on the coin or $5 on the coin. They can't buy an ounce of silver to replace that with to sell it to somebody else for that price. The physical silver costs more than the paper, and the paper is what that price, that $117.94, is based on. So at the moment, because arbitrage is not possible, they cannot buy silver in one place in the world and shift it to another, therefore bringing the prices into alignment, it's struggling. And when I say struggling, I mean it's paper that's struggling, not the precious metal. The precious metal itself is going up, and it doesn't really matter who you listen to, whether you follow an AI guy. And I noticed that today an AI version of Robert Kiyosaki, the Get Rich guy, that's popped up with advice about $500 an ounce and all that sort of stuff. So be prepared. A ton of AI that's coming out. But you can also go to some of the human and respected folks who know the business. Ainsley Insights is one of them, but they're so flat out at the moment, I'm not sure that they're doing too much on it. But there are a number of commenters from around the world that you could go and check out and cross-reference the information that I give or anybody else gives about what's going on at the moment with regard to precious metals. Everybody agrees it's going up, or they are going up, both gold and silver. And gold has been trading, let me just have a look. Gold's back over 5,000 US an ounce. So, and people have gone, oh, God, such a shocking drop. If we just look at trading this week alone, we're up $7 an ounce. I mean, these are big swings, and that could drop again. It might go up much higher. I mean, obviously, we're not back up at $170 an ounce, and we do hope that we get there. But it will be better for all if we get there in a slow, methodical fashion rather than, with a rocket up our jacksie, because that really just leads to further instability, and it makes it very hard for you to pick the top of that market if you are thinking about selling some of your metals, and you're going to try and do that at the closest point to the top of the market as you can. So bear that one in mind. I know most of you are. It's too bloody difficult. Some interesting things going on in the world today. I've watched or listened to, I should say, a great deal of Senate estimates. Got to say, Senator James Patterson from Victoria is a very high performer in estimates. Senator Bragg is also holding a flame to these folks, and I get the feeling that Senators Canavan and there was another national I can't think of, have also been doing their job, trying to get the government, or at least the bureaucrats, to do theirs and report openly and honestly. I've got to be honest, watching this sometimes, watching a senator try and extract an answer from a public servant who doesn't want to give you one, well, I've just got to say, I think only certain senators are capable of the intellect required to do it, to get around the public service training handbooklet of how to avoid answering a question. And James Patterson does a pretty good bloody job of it. So if you get bored and lonely and you've got a life like mine where you've got precious little else and you want to go and listen to politicians drone on or public servants make excuses, I can tell you that the last couple of days of estimates has been well worth the effort. Also, just quickly, obviously there is a whole heap of crap going on with the coalition. Today, much noise. I haven't heard. It may have happened by now. I haven't actually looked. Let me just flick over onto one of the news sites and see if there is news. Angus Taylor resigns from the shadow cabinet, setting the stage for a leadership challenge. So he has resigned. That was mooted that it would happen after question time today. Angus Taylor and what's her name? The funeral lady, the white lady funerals lady. Anyway, she put out a statement before question time today saying, well, if Angus wants to challenge, let him challenge. That'll be fine. So the biggest option, or the best thing that she could probably do, well, the best thing she could do is probably just quit. But she doesn't want to do that. She wants to be thrown out. So she should bring on the challenge immediately. She has the power to do that. She could have that challenge heard tomorrow. The vote could be taken tomorrow. It could be that easy. Instead, it's probably going to drag out another day and get to Friday before they make that vote, and it will be a change. The only question for mine is who will be the deputy. Now, do you think it'll be a lady? I think it probably will be. I think a senator from Victoria, Jane Hume, was one of Angus's close allies, and she may have even run on the last leadership ticket with him. I have no doubt she might like the position, but to get across the line here, I think that Angus Taylor is going to need to do a deal with Andrew Hastie that gets someone of his supporters into that role. Hastie himself, I don't think, would want it because they have the Liberal Party, have much bigger leadership ambitions for him. And at the moment, given the pounding that they are receiving in the polls, it would be a sacrificial leader that potentially they would be putting up. Someone that will be sacrificed at the next election if required, because they may not have the ability to regain the level of support that they require, given that One Nation has stolen most of their thunder and a good deal of their supporters. Now, that remains to be seen. Polls are polls, and, never had much faith in them in the past. Election results, well, I've got to say I haven't had too much faith in them either. But this groundswell of support for One Nation Pauline speaking the way she's speaking in a very statesman-like manner, or stateswoman-like manner, is it the right way? She isn't going to be making a play for the Prime Ministership, I don't believe, even if One Nation were to get enough support to win government. Barnaby Joyce is also presenting now, speaking much more directly both to the people and from the perspective of the people. I believe, whether he knows it or not, I think he's being a lot more honest with the people and is saying things how it is. But policies probably mean a lot. We need to see a bit more from One Nation, and I'm sure we will as time rolls out over the next couple of years. Will they get a couple of years with the way the Albanese or Albo Sleazy government is going? I don't know. If Albo is smart, I would say that the dissension that is in the coalition ranks, the Liberal National, so hard to tell Liberal and Labor apart, you see. The uni party is what it is, and the Nationals just get mixed in with the Greens. However, the Liberal Party may not be in a position to win the election next time round. They may not be in a position to come anywhere bloody close, and that's why Andrew Hastie would be left in the background to recover and rebuild for the election in, what would that be, 2032. Albanese, I think, would go early, is where I was getting at. I think he won't last the next 2 years. I think if the Liberal Party is still self-assassinating and hasn't been able to regain any or much of the ground back that they've lost to One Nation, then I would be amazed if Albanese didn't go early and try and extend again. Whether or not it was him that stayed in the job could be a different matter, but they won't announce that until about that time. One Nation have announced a number of policies. I'm interested to learn about their registered sex offender policy. So the latest details have been released about registered sex offenders in this country, and I'm not exactly sure whether or not you want to throw a party or whether or not you want to hang your head in shame, but there, spread by state, the amount of sex offenders that you have registered in your states. There is over 10,500 registered sex offenders in Australia. In fact, some have said that I believe there's over 30,000, 36,500, I beg your pardon. And, well, that's a big number considering the size of our population. I'm very keen to learn about the policies that One Nation would put forward regarding those registered sex offenders. Some argue they shouldn't be allowed to live in civilized communities. They should have their own communities. They should be well away from society and all that kind of thing. Others argue they've done the crime, done the time, and provided they're not recommitting crimes or committing new crimes, they should be allowed to live in peace. Now, I've got to admit, there is an element of me that sits in that paddock, except when it comes to pedophiles. I'm pretty forgiving of any other sort of criminal, but pedophiles I struggle with. There is no forgiveness, as far as I'm concerned, for somebody who would hurt a child deliberately, use them for pleasure in that way. How they would derive pleasure from that, I don't understand, and I don't care to think too much about it because the thought of it makes me sick, like all good human beings. But we're not talking about good human beings. We're talking about evil things that have been controlling us and will continue to control us unless we exercise our right to vote and weaponize it, to rearm Australia, to give us teeth again in that parliament. And it comes down to whether or not you believe Pauline Hanson and One Nation will be those teeth. And yes, there are 1,000 reasons why you might doubt that they can be that. You might doubt that they're sincere because they've had alliances with Israel, or they've had didn't vote on this, that, or the other legislation. at the moment, I think all of that, to a point, is irrelevant. What we have at the moment is the opportunity with One Nation, should the momentum be able to be kept up, to be grown, to be expanded upon, and that's a big ask. Should that be able to happen, then I believe, for the first time, certainly in my lifetime and maybe yours, we have the opportunity for real change, provided we trust One Nation with that power, understanding that these are the changes that require being made. And that's why we have a list at vofhq.com of key performance indicators, the KPIs that you would expect One Nation to introduce should they be given the privilege of leadership in this country. Now, if you've got ideas and you'd like to see what others have thought, then please go to vofhq.com and have a read. I think it's the top of the page there. If you'd like to add something, please add your comment. Vince and I'll check it and we'll post them up. So far, we've posted every comment that's been received. We haven't had to delete anything. Nobody's being foolish or stupid. They're all taking it quite seriously. Now, some of our questions, or some of the things that, rather not questions, but some of the KPIs that you have come up with are things I've never thought of and are very, very good. Whether or not they get large support across the country once we expose it all, who knows? But I can't see too many that won't or shouldn't garner public and significant public support. If we can agree as we the people on a set of guidelines that we expect One Nation to follow through on, and we present those to One Nation at some point. And I've got to be honest, I think at the moment, One Nation they haven't released all their policies. They've given a broad outline on a lot of policy. At the moment, it sort of marries up, it sort of doesn't. There are gaps between our KPIs and their policies, but a lot of them are similar. A lot of them are exactly the same things that, like, broadly speaking, getting out of the UN, getting out of the WEF, getting out of the WHO, retaining or regaining our Australian sovereignty, establishing oversight, establishing transparency, fixing the bureaucracy. God, if you ever need an example of how our bureaucracy needs to be cleaned out, just sit and watch James Patterson's YouTube feed during estimates, because he throws them up every half an hour. Here's another public servant telling us bullshit. Today, we discovered there's $57 billion that Treasury and Finance can't seem to account for. I mean, they've got excuses, and they've got a lot of words to say it's here, there, or everywhere, but nobody can really tell you exactly where it is or how it was spent or why. And all I got out of listening to that was the severe smell of brown paper bags. A lot of talk about the Epstein files. I'm not going to talk too much about them today. There has been, I believe, another big dump of coordinated information out of the most recent dump of Epstein files, meaning somebody's gone and done a bit of searching and story hunting. One of those stories came out a couple of days ago, and it relates to Jeffrey Epstein. And I thought, this is going to go away. It hasn't gone away. In fact, it's only got deeper. And in fact, it's got deeper and darker, to a point where there are now reports that were hidden, apparently, from earlier investigations, outlining a black van that was at the prison that Jeffrey Epstein was in the night he supposedly committed suicide, that van was used to remove him and his body, pretty hard to remove separately, I suppose, and that there was a dummy van used, complete with, cardboard stuffed pillows and rags to indicate a dead body in a body bag, that the media followed in a white van that left the New York prison where Epstein supposedly hung himself. Further to that story, Epstein wasn't dead when he was put in the back of that black van. He was just disappeared, and he was disappeared by the highest levels of government. There were people from the Department of Justice at the prison picking him up. So is that true? I don't know, but then somebody put this picture out. This is a picture that was taken in Tel Aviv about a week ago, supposedly. I have no way of checking its veracity or any other thing. I don't know whether that's Jeffrey Epstein or not, but I will say it wouldn't surprise me. Oh, there's a banner we all know and love. Well, I don't. CFMEU Victoria. Interesting bunch of blokes cowering inside their building as they were that day that Melbourne ignited. Darren Bergworth and the rest of his mates were out front of the CFMEU building chucking shit at it, inviting them, the boys inside, to come outside and play. They didn't want to do that. They were all a little quiet. Well, they weren't quiet. They were poking a hose out from memory from the door. We've always had suspicions about the CFMEU, but not just the CFMEU. Many other unions and their relationships to government over the years. But it has become very clear that the CFMEU have something of a very unique relationship with Labor. Now, that was pointed out to Labor a little while ago, and the CFMEU, while they were out swinging their appendage rather widely and violently, got noticed in ways that they probably didn't want. And therefore, Labor had to appoint a CFMEU administrator who's now accused of an industrial-scale cover-up after getting a report into the corruption inside the CFMEU in Victoria, and more particularly the links to government high up in there. Now, the story is in news.com.au, but Albanese and his mates appointed this administrator, and the cover-up is massive. There are two very large sections of this report that this administrator ordained to have removed from the report when it was written by a Mr. Watson, SC. He was commissioned by Mark Irving, who is the CFMEU administrator. The reason the administrator was appointed was because, well, there's some question marks over just how lawful and legal the CFMEU are and whether or not they had any links to Labor. So Albo appoints this CFMEU administrator to view the CFMEU Victoria interaction with Labor. Mr. Watson is very much an independent and wrote the report. But when he passed it on to the administrator, they removed two very important little pieces. Now, the deleted parts of the corruption report included a section titled Government Inaction on the CFMEU, which concluded that the Victorian government knew that the CFMEU was working with bikies and organised crime figures on its big build sites, but chose to do absolutely nothing about it. The deleted parts of the corruption report included a section titled Government Inaction on the CFMEU, and there's no doubt that the government knew about the rising problem. It was equally clear that the government did nothing more about it. It's claimed that the inaction of government has cost Victorian taxpayers as much as $15 billion directly, and it could be as high as $30 or $40 billion, because there are other pockets to fill. Much of that $15 billion has been poured directly into the hands of the criminals and the organised crime gangs that are well behind the CFMEU. The Watson report said this could not be fully explained by the close connection between the Victorian Labor government and the CFMEU. Instead, it concluded that the government has been cowed by the combination of the industrial might of the CFMEU and its willingness to act outside the law. In addition, section was also removed from the final corruption report that found inaction may have increased the cost to the taxpayer by up to 30%. The revelations have sparked outrage from the industry, political figures, and just about anybody who's got a common sense brain in their friggin' head. It's a scandal. It's an industrial-sized cover-up, and they're supposedly going to do something about it. Now, Tim Wilson is a federal politician, but he's very keen and very excited to get involved and put these folks through the ringer, potentially federally. It's now clear that sections of the report that expose the deep heart of corruption between the CFMEU and the Labor Party have been whitewashed and redacted. The CFMEU, I want to point out, is a national union, and they've developed national policies in line to help their Labor mates. Just remember that. So this Tim Wilson, who is a sitting poly, did an interview today, and he's asking questions of all the appropriate government ministers. Will they get any answers? I don't friggin' think so. I think one of the biggest problems we are going to have is Labor and their union mates have a way of inflicting damage on the country, be that going slow at ports or stopping the beer or whatever else. So be prepared. A lot of union chaos coming our way, and the CFMEU screaming all the way to the bank again, quite probably. Be very, very mindful that in Victoria particularly, the big government builds, and there are some very big budget builds going on in Victoria at the moment. To what sort of benefit, I'm not completely sure. There are more on the way, including, announced today, some magnificent new areas for Victorians to go out and expand and enjoy their state. They're going to put new houses into these areas. What areas are they? Oh, those areas are areas like Toorak, like Malvern, Windsor. They are areas identified by the Victorian state government as activity centres, areas where people might like to live much closer to public transport. And that's what they're developing. Bigger public transport corridors and high density living. There are 50 proposed activity centres around the state. The latest ones, as I've said here, Armidale, Windsor, Toorak, South Yarra. These buildings, high density living, up to 16 stories in South Yarra, up to 20 stories in Caulfield. I imagine the Jewish families in Caulfield aren't going to like having 16 levels of Palestinians moving in, or just Muslims. These suburbs, by the way, all happen to be very conservative suburbs that do not support Labor in any way, shape or form. Well, they will, should they be able to get those high-density housing places built, because who'll be moving into them? All the people that Labor have invited to come and live in the country. God, love us. And, of course, they've invited a few into the country who they haven't really done any backgrounding on. They didn't bother checking to see if they might have been dangerous or had some extremist-type ideas. But never fear, we got a new woman at the AFP. She's here to help. Go, Chrissy Barrett. Yay! Chrissy Barrett has introduced a new group of thugs to come and play in this realm. She has established the new Hate Disruptor Squads. Hate Disruptor Squads. That's their actual name. The Hate Disruptor Squad. They are flying squads of hate disruptors. They've been very successful in identifying, offending, and charging offenders before violence is carried out. I'm all for identifying violent people and stopping them from carrying out violent actions. All for that. There's a ways and a mean of doing it, and I'm not sure that this is going to happen. She said that these teams, these flying squads of hate disruptors, who are now said to be NSI teams, doesn't that sound nice, have now charged 21 people since October, the majority relating to threats towards parliamentarians, high office holders, and, of course, the Jewish community. The National Security Investigations Team proof of concept has been successful, and they're now expanding that throughout the country. So you can expect more hate disruptors, coming to a place near you soon. And of course, since combating anti-Semitism, hate, and extremism act has been received and gained royal assent a few weeks ago. But did it? Anyway, AFP is taking an even more aggressive approach. God, don't we love their aggressive approach? She then said, hatred and willingness to mobile the violence often masquerades as a right or freedom to do or say something, and was being targeted at minority groups, politicians, and senior public officials. But also noted the majority of the AFP's terrorism caseload was religiously motivated violent extremism. But Ms. Barrett told the committee modern policing is not always about arresting and charging. It includes the benefit of disrupting, and said that under her commissionership, they will disrupt, intervene, and do whatever, whenever they lawfully can. Yip yah, yip yah. Some of their actions will be visible and overt. Other actions will be lawful and covert. Okay, right, yeah. And their unpredictability would worry those who are on their radar and those who will be on the radar as the net is widened. Her advice: if you're one of these groups of individuals, your life will become very uncomfortable. Now, while she's talking in part toward the religious extremists, she's also talking about people like us, people who might post something on a social media page which others might vehemently disagree with. I think the AFP has been taken over by a bunch of women with feelings and very little regard for common sense or the law. In fact, I think the whole public service has been taken over by that. I can't say a bunch of unintelligent women because the corruption level involved and the levels of deceit involved indicate that these people are extremely devious, extremely intelligent, and some might suggest evil. Not all of them, just some key ones, the ones you've got to have in the big portfolios, maybe. So keep an eye out for yourself and others, including myself. And, well, I don't think they'll come and arrest the Aussie Cossack for two reasons. One, the Russian consulate probably won't let them inside. And two, he hasn't got a T-shirt. And I don't think they want to expose that to the whole world, do they? Bali's made a big decision. Indonesia has banned elephant rides nationwide after a bit of disturbing footage came to light. They use a pick kind of thing, a metal like a hammer with a shaved end, if you like, and treat the animals rather badly, obviously spike them in the head to turn them and do things. There is a name for it. They've been using sticks or, metal things, I guess, more recently for thousands of years, hundreds of years, however many years they've been riding elephants in Indonesia, really. I've never liked the idea of riding captive animals. I don't even like riding ones that aren't captive. I find them a lot harder to ride. But never been on an elephant, wouldn't get on an elephant. I did get on a camel once, but that was for a camel race, and I figure I paid my punishment. It was about 7 weeks at a chiropractor. So I'm not a big one for going off and riding animals when you go to another country. So I'm really pleased to hear that riding elephants is being banned in Indonesia, or has been banned immediately in Indonesia. It will put a lot of people out of work. Don't be confused by the word sanctuary, or some of these places say that they are elephant sanctuaries. The animals are treated beautifully and they love taking you for a walk. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I think if you've got any kind of empathy inside you, you look into the eyes of these animals, you know damn well they're not happy about what's going on in the world. And some of the evidence that Peter released in the last 12 months or so, particularly of conditions at some of those sanctuaries in Indonesia, was abhorrent, with baby elephants chained up all day. Really awful. So I don't usually get out and congratulate Indonesia for doing too much, but bloody congratulations. I'm very impressed. And to somebody that I know who went over there and thought it was just the world's most magnificent place, and then fell off and broke her spine on an elephant ride, she's probably going to be pretty happy about that too, I would have thought. So, yip yap, well done, Indonesia. what's happening today in, I think we talked about her, didn't we? The funeral director. Not a lot of excitement there. I should tell you about our merch. Otherwise, Vince will get up me for the rent. We do. And thank you to those of you who reached out over the weekend or in the last few days and have bought. I think we've sold some cups, some mugs, some shirts, and there was something else that was up there. I think we may have sold a couple of as well. So thank you very much for those of you who have ordained to support us in that way. They're a great shirt, good quality shirt, and I've got to thank Vince for coming up with the design. You burn it, we'll wear it. I hate the people who go around burning our flags. That's on the back of that one. And on the front, you'll get a voice of freedom, or you potentially could get a new, different design with the FBN logo, which if I scroll up here a little bit, I should be able to show you. That's the new one that Vince has put together without my head sticking behind it. I really like that. It does come on every one of the shirts, by the way. It'll come on the sleeve. But go to merch.vofhq.com and click on the shop there, and you'll get to see the range of T-shirts and hoodies and other stuff that we've got there. I don't know. I think I'm still the only person with an Australia Land of the Fee T-shirt. I reckon we should all have one of those because that's what we are charged. Every day we're paying fees through the nostrils. But, it's up to you. You might figure something else. And like, these ones. You burn it, we wear it. Still looking for an Aboriginal flag, by the way. I do have a little bit of good news, and I think it's actually magnificent news. We've told you that FBN, the Freedom Broadcasting Network, has some grandiose ideas to bring all these people together, put some new programming together, and give us all one place where you can click and find all the views, where everybody works together to try and find the solution. And it won't just be really heavy stuff that we talk about. And the shows will be about living a life in these times and how best we can help each other, how best we can come together and grow, how best we can reunite and move forward to regain our freedoms, to regain a freedom that I don't think, I know none of us have ever truly experienced. And that can be a bit daunting, because how do you know when you've reached that level of freedom? It'll all look very strange. It'll all look very weird. And with that level of freedom, I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it until I die, should we gain that level of spiritual awareness, that level of clarity, then everything should go quite well. But if we reach that point too early and we haven't reached a level of spiritual clarity, then I fear our excuse-driven programming will re-energize and tear us apart. So we need to work harder to reinforce, understand, believe. Belief really isn't an issue for those of us that are doing the research. So if you have doubts, do the research. If you have further doubts, do further research. If you can prove things are out and out wrong, wonderful. Share your research. It's only through us all coming together and sharing our knowledge, our huge knowledge base, that we will find a solution to these problems. We will find a way forward where all of us prosper, where society doesn't leave people to sleep in the streets and eat garbage out of dumpsters, where a society protects its children rather than offering them up for satanic ritual or sacrifice. We can be a people that loves and protects each other. And until we understand that, until we give up our ego, until we give up, the me, that's mine, I have to have that, our ownership over something, nothing's going to change. We all have to understand this is God's gift to us. We all have a share in God's gift. The division was introduced because at some point somebody stood up and said, put their foot on a bit of land and said, this is mine. And then somebody else stood in the creek beside that land and said, this is mine. And shortly after that, people who wanted to walk through the creek or through the paddock were stopped from doing so. Find another way because this is mine. The division was created. We might talk more about that at a later time, quite literally. I haven't even acknowledged you guys in the chat tonight. That's a bit rude of me. Deb Shippard was in first up. Hello, Deb. Lovely to have you in. And thank you to Deb 333 who wrote to me last night. I think I wrote back, thank you for your support. Really appreciate it. And so glad that you took the silver advice or the precious metals advice and got a bit of it when it was in the $30 an ounce range. Oh, how lucky. Not how lucky, how well thought out. Foreplanning, forethought, you've done marvelously well. The lovely Sandy's in the house. She'll be asleep by now. I spoke to her the other day, God love her. You'll stay awake for this one, my ass. She admitted, she said, I'm really good. It's because of daylight savings. I mean, Sandy starts at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'm pretty forgiving. So she's cooking dinner or just about to start eating dinner at the moment with daylight saving when the show starts. And then by the time she's finished dinner, she falls asleep or has to go off to bed. So sometimes I'm still rambling. God love you, woman. I hope you and the donkeys and Baz are all doing very well. I've seen some really beautiful social media stuff coming out of the Donkey Sanctuary. If you're on Facebook, folks, go and look up the Good Samaritan Donkey Sanctuary. Follow them, friend them, do all the things that you've got to do. And maybe you can help us help them a little bit by buying a ticket in our lottery. You could win yourself $750, except if you're in Victoria, in which case we'll send your money back because that strange woman in charge of Victoria doesn't think any Victorian is worthy of any prize, and certainly not cash. My God, no. You can't have the money. We'll want the money. And that's exactly what their plan was, to make sure that if they couldn't get the money, then no one would get it. Victorians, state government. Gotta love them. Oh, God, there's a little bit of vomit came up then. Sorry about that. Tony, how are you going, mate? Good to hear. We actually spoke a little today, so I know you are doing well. Good to see that Daniel's wandering around still in Canberra is treating you well, my friend. Thank you for the stuff you've been sending through. And Penny, I trust you are well. Vincenzo is in the house. And so to Margot, I'm looking for any questions. If there are any, put them in now, and I'm scrolling down. The lovely Connie and Alan, who are coming on the cruise. I think if you are coming on the cruise, you have to have your cruise paid for by the 14th. What's today? The 11th. If you, like me, are waiting for the price of silver to go up before you go and cash a coin or two, then fingers crossed it goes up in the next couple of days. If you haven't booked and still want to come and you don't want to pay by February the 14th, I'm guessing if there are still berths available, you could get a late comers deal after February the 14th for our cruise on the 4th of May. It's only 4 days long. And there has been a whisper, there is no promise, but there has been a whisper that Skipper Pete might make the what would be 4.5 to 5 hour drive south so that he can come and have lunch at the Whitsunday Sailing Club on our day at Airlie Beach. God love him. It's the kind of thing he does, though. He's a marvelous man. Okay, so let me just have a look here. I hope everyone following Asian Guy doesn't take the information as a given. There are often big mistakes in his analysis, such as him stating that gold and silver purchases in Australia attract GST. Yes. Yes, the Asian Guy or John AG, or he works under about 10 different channel names. So and each of them put out just slightly different content. Be very aware that, as Watler has said, some of that information isn't accurate at all. Quite a lot of it is extremely accurate. So I've said before recently, particularly with regard to this guy in particular, the Asian guy, and his analysis of the gold and silver markets, that his information and predictions can be very, very, very good. And then he will throw in a curly one, or he'll make a very big statement about meetings or executive orders. Now, I think we discussed that the other day, the apparent executive order that Donald Trump had issued on the 14th of January, outlining the immediate introduction of a floor in the price of precious metals or critical metals that were deemed essential for America's ongoing survival. And an executive order has a lot of powers, but this wasn't an executive order. So it wasn't Trump saying establish a floor at 120 to 160 US dollars an ounce for silver. That did not happen. Pardon me. He issued a proclamation, a presidential proclamation, which is different. It's more a guidance, it's more a suggestion, it's more an idea. You could go this way. And he did put that out on January the 14th, and he did suggest that a floor price of 120 to 160 US dollars an ounce should be something they would look at doing. Why introduce a floor price? That was what had me and others thinking, because ordinarily you'd think you'd introduce a cap. But the floor price was to stop China buying cheap silver and getting it shipped clean out of America straight into the vaults in China, where it will never be seen again until it's used in a solar panel and shipped back to America that way, or in an EV. So there is some logic for that wanting to be put in, but it would be through an introduction of tariff systems and God knows whatever else. JD Vance has been put in charge of investigating it, and I believe on 24th of February we will hear something in regard to that from JD Vance, some kind of interim report as to whether or not that could be a viable thing. Now, by February the 24th, given the way the market is going with precious metals at the moment, we could see an increase in silver and gold prices. What it doesn't look like we're going to see is an increase in Bitcoin. I've just had a look at that. Bitcoin is down to 66,500 thereabouts at the moment. So it's dropping. And I was looking the other day at XRP. I think last time we spoke about XRP, you could buy it for about $3.20. Right now, you can buy it for $1.36. Still don't claim to understand it, but if you want to understand it, then you need to go over to FBN and watch Vince's show, CoinSpot, where he explains all things crypto. And when he can't explain it, he gets people who knows much more about it on to talk to him about it. So go and check it out. Crypto is here to stay in one form or another, and it probably pays to know more about it than not. Vince, God love him, is doing a great job putting that show together. And occasionally, it's usually live on a Saturday night, but occasionally the sleeping pattern doesn't quite match up, or guests turn out to be unavailable. And it's difficult when you've prepped a show with a guest that you're going to do something and they don't turn up. It's difficult, to say the least. But go and give it a look over on the FBN channel. I did start off telling you about beautiful things happening on the FBN channel. And one of the programs that we are looking forward to bringing to you is, well, The View, with a bunch of women who get on there and assassinate anything conservative and propagate anything evil and leftist. I've often thought we need to have a counterbalance to that kind of show, and as only I think Australians could do it, because there won't be much reverence. There will be good, intelligent conversation. And there will be a number of fired up women very prepared to give their opinions, their advice, their thoughts on a range of matters happening around the nation and around the world. Now, I've only got a poster that was made up. The date or the start date that's on this poster is in fact wrong. So I don't want you to go and get too excited, because days of the week need to match up. There are also, start dates, don't know, the girls are still figuring it out, but sometime the next week or two, you will have a new offering through FBN, and I'll get the girls on here for a bit of a chat so they can go through the first show, let you know what it's all on about. But it's going to be called Real Talk Down Under. The plan was to do it every Wednesday at 7:30. However, one of the girls can't make it on a Wednesday night at that time, so it looks like it could well be Thursday nights at that time, or potentially just a little bit later. And I'll have Becky O from Truth Seeker TV on to chat about it, and she might bring a couple of the other girls on and introduce them to you as well. I'm sure you'll be familiar with many of them, and I think there is half a plan that we might rotate a few guests through there, females, because, well, it's a big job when you're managing a family, got a job, and you're asked to be part of one of these sorts of things where you have to prepare something, you've got to have something to say, and you don't want to look like a dill. So it can be a bit of a big ask. So we don't want to put too much on people that, means that it's hard for them to participate. We will make it easy and not too much of a drain. So it might be a core group of ladies with a couple of blow-ins that just keep rotating through. I don't know. We'll see what happens. A lot of it will depend on you and your suggestions, your thoughts, and what you'd like to see and hear. That is just one of the show ideas. I think I alluded to another one a little bit earlier. There are a number of new people coming onto the scene that are very keen in presenting, very keen in putting their opinion forward, very keen in trying to help find a solution to the issues that we face. And I'm all for developing new talent, and I'm all for helping old talent. So if you're one of those people, reach out to either Vince or myself, Carl or Vince, at vofhq.com, and tell us what your idea is. It doesn't have to be political. In fact, we're looking for ideas of just about all genres. So if you're a cook, if you're a bush chef, if you're somebody who has, an interest in fly fishing and you want to show us how you tie flies, that's anything. Show us your interests. If it's boating, camping, fishing, show us your interests. If you've got little hints and tips and shortcuts for people like me who live in a bus and, storage is an issue, those sorts of things. These are just little pieces of content that we can throw up on FBN that help us as a community come together, as a knowledge bank. We all don't know everything. Some of us know a lot less than others, I'll grant you. However, even those people have something to contribute to the knowledge bank. And the bigger the knowledge bank, the wider the knowledge, the more chance we find that solution. I really hope you can be part of that. I'm very excited to see what comes from it. And FBN will play a very large role in that going forward. And of course, there are many other little things happening in the background at the moment. There are a lot of discussions going on, should I say. I think I'm not sure that everybody who is talking about taking certain actions are aware that there are many others talking about taking the same kinds of actions. Once again, there seems to be a lack of coordination between varying different groups. And Cass Smith today on her Facebook and other socials put out a video, which I've posted up on Facebook as well and shared, where she addresses the free dumb movement. And I find it very hard to argue with anything that she says. in that short video. It's well worthwhile checking out. You can go to my Facebook page or hers and have a bit of a look. But the free dumb movement is exactly that. It is tearing itself apart through ego and, well, supposed action, but more inaction than anything else. The most motivated the free dumb movement gets when it comes to action is assassinating one of its own, dragging down one of its own. And we've been very good at doing it. Now, of course, there are those who have come into the movement that didn't come in with maybe the best intentions, or their intention was quite clear. They came in to make money, not necessarily to find solutions or to help people. You find a lot of those have dropped by the wayside. A lot of those types are no longer in the movement at all, or if they are, they have significantly reduced their followings and are not getting the traction or the invites to the stages where they used to stand in front of people and bathe in the adoration. That's a good thing, in my opinion. I don't know if that means we're sorting the wheat from the chaff and what that makes me. I'm sure if I'm chaff, I'll be washed out at the appropriate time. And hopefully for the wheat that's much stronger, that is developing the solutions to help us all. Now, I obviously want to be playing a part in that, but so does everybody in the free dumb movement. We all want to play a role in it. Some of us for different reasons. I don't see my role as any kind of a leadership role or anything like that. I see my role as a reporting role, as a sounding board, as one of many logical argumenters who will tear apart your ideas and your thoughts, not with malice and vindictiveness, but with a view to how does this help us? Where will it move us forward? Where are the benefits to we the people? And who benefits us? Who benefits most? The corporation, the company, or the person who is offering the benefit to the people, or the people themselves? That's what I'm about. Finding benefits for the people and making sure that those benefits are what we need at the time we need them. We'll talk more about that in a little while. In fact, there are a few things going on in the background at the moment that I'll bring to your attention. I'm being pressured again, in a nice way, to do some reading. A lot of people want to hear me read various different things, but so far there are more votes for me reading the Bible than anything else. I'm not convinced that you want to hear that from me. In the next little while, we're just figuring out how to add some pictures to some stuff I've already read. I'll post up something on YouTube and in our social channels. It's not the Bible, it'll be something else, to give you an idea of what listening to me reading a long form thing would be like. To do something like that requires a huge amount of time. Not just the time to read it, but then there is the time to edit it. There is, if we, being a sound designer and sound engineer, as I was, as well as a voice, I want to put things behind the things I read so that it creates atmosphere. In radio, there's a saying, radio is theatre of the mind. So that's why we put sound effects and things in ads, to give you the situational placement in the ad. You know, if you're doing an ad about a jungle, you want to have the sounds of a jungle in the background of the ad, that kind of thing. So I want to do that with this, and I'm looking to just do something easy and quick, and there doesn't seem to be an easy AI quick way to fix this if I'm loading up a voiceover I've done myself. If you're aware of it, can you let me know? I do have a large audio file that I want to put video to, and without me having to sit down and edit a video out of it. I'd like AI just to do pretty much what it does with the Asian guy, and put those Picasso-type works of art in the background. That'll be fine. It's not what's on the screen, it's what I'm saying, supposedly, that we would like to get your reaction on. So if we do this, I can't do it by myself, and I will need to enlist the help of one of my former professional colleagues. He is one of the best producers in the country, is now working from home pretty much, and he'll need to be paid. So I struggle once again with how to satisfy your desire to hear me read something long form, something that you can go to sleep listening to at night outside of this program. If it's the Bible and you're spiritual, or maybe you just have an interest in hearing me read it, well, you know, I can tell you there's 78.5 hours of reading, just reading, involved. Then there's God knows how many hours of editing, depends how much I stuff it up, I suppose. And then sound design, what we call sound design, which is putting those effects and whatnot behind it, that give it placement. The Bible wouldn't require that much, you wouldn't think, because in the beginning there was nothing. So therefore, there is nothing in the background. But in the beginning, God looked down and separated the waters. So you would have the sound of water come in. God created the birds. You would have the sound of birds. The other animals. You put a small jungle in by the end of chapter 1 of book 1, Genesis. This all takes time. Now, I'd have to pay Dennis. And I'll be honest, we're not making enough money to pay me or Vince, let alone introduce anybody else into the mix. So, do we put this behind a paywall? If it's something people truly want to hear, do we put it behind Patreon and say, all right, well, here's the first 4 chapters, or here's the first 4 books. We need our Patreons to raise X amount of money so that we can read the next 4 books, or whatever it turns out to be. You know me, I'd do it for you for nothing. But as Vince has drummed into me, and many people have said to me, I've got to stop doing everything for nothing. Because that's why I have nothing. I guess it correlates. You'd think a smart person would understand that. I seem to struggle with the thought, but it is what it is. Speaking of it is what it is, I've rambled on for much longer than I fully intended to tonight, so I might love you and leave you. Have a think about that, will you? And certainly if you're interested in being involved going forward with the new shows that are coming up on FBN, including the one that I've alluded to tonight, Real Talk from Down Under, then reach out, carl@vofhq.com, and we will see what we can do for you. You can be guaranteed of one thing, though. If you do get your own show on here, you will be allowed to present evidence of your own that Australia is absolutely 100% filled with dickheads on the road.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!